Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Accurascale have just released a brand new diesel, so today we're going to take a look at it. Today then, we are of course looking at this, Accurascale's brand new Class 60. And I very nearly had to set up a series of winches and pulleys in order to hold this box up because, my goodness, this thing weighs a ton. Anyway, when it comes to the Class 60s, there has been quite a saga, hasn't there? Obviously, a few months ago, the Haulage Class 60 came out, and I did a review of that. If you want to check it out, pop a link up there. The Haulage Class 60 was absolutely fantastic. It was beautifully detailed and it had an awful lot of features to it. It wasn't without issue, of course. Unfortunately, the model shipped with a fault to the gearing, which meant that some models ran very noisily, mine included, and in some extreme cases, they didn't run very smoothly. Now, to be fair to Haulage, they did step up to the mark and fix this issue. They offered repairs, they sent out replacement parts so that people could repair their models, but of course, it would have been better if they'd identified this issue before releasing the model, rather than afterwards and causing an inconvenience to customers, which did sour the model a little bit for some people. The other thing about the Haulage model was the price. Now, I think on the grand scheme of things, the model was not unreasonably priced at all, but it was much more expensive than this, the Accurascale model. So the cost of the Haulage 60 was £194.95, and the Accurascale Class 60 I've just bought for £169.99. So about £25 cheaper, which is kind of significant. It's not a pound or two, it is £25, a quarter of £100, if you will. So really, this means that Accurascale's model is going to have to be worse, right? Because if it's the same or better, then it's not worth bothering with the Haulage one, is it? Unless it does something for you that the Accurascale doesn't, of course. The other thing is, of course, I have looked at an Accurascale Class 60 before. This was probably a year or more ago now, where I was lucky enough to get one of the early samples and I did sort of an overview of that model. And it was great, and maybe I should have just left it there, but I like my reviews to be independent. Right, so for the actual review, I decided I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to buy a model, a Class 60, from the retailers so that I get exactly the same experience as a typical customer, and we'll see what the model is like so that I can fairly say which Class 60 I think is the best, or at the very least what I think specifically about the Accurascale Class 60. So really looking forward to this one. It's been a long time coming, and I guess unless Bachmann announces a Class 60 tomorrow, this will probably bring the Class 60 saga to a close. So what's this like? If you want to check one of them out for yourself, I'll pop an affiliate link in the description. Let's open this up though and see what's in store. So yeah, I mean, this box is unbelievably heavy. I will be very curious to see what the final weight of the loco itself is. Anyway, which version did I go for? Let me show you the end of the box. So obviously there's lots to choose from. Check out that affiliate link if you do want to browse the range. I went for Class 60 locomotive number 60092, Reginald Munns, that's his name, in the rail freight grey, of course. The product code is ACC2893. It's TTG Coal, and it is Era 8. So that's 1982 to 1997. That's the era for this particular example. Obviously, there's lots of others to choose from, though. Right, let's take the cover off the box, and let's start delving into this, shall we? Lifting the lid, expecting a mass of paperwork, which is always good to see. And yep, there it is. Very nice. Let's see what this contains then. Quite a lot, by the looks of it. I'm not seeing any diabolical warnings telling me I mustn't lay a finger on the locomotive until I've read it thoroughly and then it will tell me information I've seen before. No, nothing like that. Right, so we're looking at instructions first today then. Lovely photo of a Class 60. I think this is generic information on the front, so unpacking, intended use, wheel cleaning, all very useful of course. And here is the exploded diagram on the inside. So, very, very complex model, loads of detail as usual. In fact, it follows the usual Accurascale format, doesn't it? Especially in terms of the mechanism. Massive motor, dual flywheels there, very chunky die-cast chassis, powering what looks like all of the axles, all 6 axles. That was not the case with the Haulage. so that seems to be an improvement. DCC decoder access, so we've once again got a magnetic roof panel apparently, which makes accessing that very easy. That's very good. According to this, there are optional detailed buffer beams to fit. So it says the Accurascale Class 60 model includes 2 separate buffer beams with all the detailing parts attached. These parts are shown individually in coloured blue on the exploded diagram. Okay, the detailed buffer beam sub-assemblies can be fitted if the tension lock couplings are not required and have been removed. Very good and precise description there. You've got 4 screws, you can swap the part. So this is instead of providing all of the buffer beam details separately and having you fit them yourself. I think this actually makes a lot more sense. There's no glue, no fitting of fiddly parts, 4 screws, exchange a part, remove the coupling, all done. Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? And maybe the parts will be separate as well. I wouldn't be surprised, knowing Accurascale. And then on the back, okay, lubrication, general care, acknowledgements, removing the body shell. So apparently this is easy. They do discourage regular removal of it, but apparently it is just clipped on. Now, whether there are other details preventing this, I don't know. Hopefully not in this case though. And a good reason why you might want to do this is to fit drivers. And with the body off, that is nice and easy. So that's the instructions. We've got, look at this. A Class 60 locomotive driver's manual, beautifully presented. And inside here, as usual, we have a complete wealth of information about the Class 60s, which again, I just love to see with a model. Even if you've never heard of a Class 60 before, everything you could possibly want to know about the class, within reason, comes with the model in the box. It's really lovely. And then at the back there, there's some of the Accurascale Class 60s. Awesome. Right. Little look at the DCC functions there, and there you have 1 side and 2 side. There you go, just for those interested. And with that, let's take a look at the model. This feels like it's been a long time coming. There's the diabolical warnings. Never mind, I take back what I said. Fantastic packaging though. I believe Accurascale had to redesign the packaging for this at one point because one of the samples got smashed to pieces in transit. Anyway, let's see what we get with this thing. Oh, that's tight. Very tight. Extremely tight. Hang on. Oh. Okay, there we go. Right, accessories then. This is an accessory I don't want to read. I've broken the rules. Everybody shout me down. Okay, here we have something that is really awesome. Right. Etched metal nameplates, very good quality ones as well. We've also got what appears to be etched metal BR arrows. That's unexpected. And then what are those little plates there? Oh yeah, we've got the little logo there. And we've got little sort of data panels there as well, etched separately supplied parts. Now this is something that was promised with the Cavalex model, but not delivered. The listing that Cavalex made did say that the model would come with etched nameplates, but none came with mine. They then contacted me to say, actually, we're going to make the nameplates. Would you like to be put down on the list so that you can have some when they arrive? I said yes. That was in February. I've still not received them yet. Accurascale have managed to provide them once again with the model, not after the fact. That is great to see, and we've got lots more just besides the nameplates as well. So Accurascale looking pretty good at the moment. Let's have a look in the accessories bag. So yeah, it is as I thought actually. We've got detailed buffer beams, which looks crazy in an accessories bag, with the movable screw link couplings, all the pipe work, the sprung buffers and everything pre-fitted. And we've also got all of those details again separately available so that you can fit them to the existing buffer beams. And this also includes a set of movable screw link couplings. So amazing provision here for a model that is so much cheaper than the Cavalex. You know, I don't know how Accurascale do it for this kind of money. Let's open this up. There's a suggestion that they're just doing it to build a big customer base and then they're going to jack up prices later on. Well, we're several years in, that hasn't happened yet, and they can't be urinating money away. You know, if they're not making money, they couldn't carry on doing this. But anyway, goodness me, look at that. Yeah, these grills look great. We've got a lot of detail even on the roof of this thing, and the finish is very fine as well. Right, I could tell already this is going to hurt me to lift up. Thanks for that, Accurascale. It's a nice problem though. Oh, okay, yeah, this thing is silly. It is silly in its weight. They are literally just showing off with this. There is no reason why this had to be anything close to this heavy. But the fact that it is, the fact that they've still got that realistic interior and it still weighs what it does is just showing off. It's saying, look at what we can do. And you know what? It's fair enough. They are right to show off. But anyway, yeah, this is a really great looking model, isn't it? The decoration is clearly wonderful. We'll take a look at that in just a second. And the level of detail, just like it was on that sample, really, seems to be astonishing. So we'll take a much closer look at this in just a second, but first of all, here's a bit of background on the real Class 60s, and of course we'll do a bit of a weigh-in and a comparison as well. The British Rail Class 60 was a heavy freight Cocoa diesel electric introduced for the first time in 1989. Exactly 100 of these monstrous 129-ton diesel electrics were produced over around 4 years. The class came about as a result of a certain unreliability in the existing Class 56 locomotives, which were causing problems in all kinds of ways. As a result, British Rail made a rule that newly ordered locomotives must have a reliability of no less than 95%. A very high target, but one that, if met, would save a significant amount of money by cutting out all of the delays and extra work caused by the unreliable engines. Several locomotive builders put in bids to accept this challenge, and the winner was Brush Traction, and consequently an order for 100 Class 60s was placed. 14 months later, the first engine was completed and it entered the testing phase, where exactly the kind of problems British Rail were trying to avoid, of course, suddenly manifested. An estimated 100 faults were discovered, though this was to be expected to an extent, I suppose, as with any new design, but it did take 2 years for the issues to be sorted out, with the contract almost being cancelled in the process. But eventually things improved, they did iron out the issues, and by 1993 all examples had been accepted into traffic. Following privatisation, the class was controlled by EWS, now DB Cargo UK. GB Rail Freight has since purchased 10 examples, and DC Rail more recently purchased a small number too. While the class is still used today, not that many of them are still in service. The first example has already been scrapped, and this took place back in 2020. Right, the great weigh-in then. Let's start with the Cavalex, just as a bit of a recap. So the weight of this is 675 grams. Very good, so nice and heavy. I can tell already though that the Accurascale is much, much heavier. So this comes in at, 804 grams. That is, what's that, about 130 grams more than the Cavalex? So that is a very, very good look for Accurascale, isn't it? There's no way to get around that. They've delivered a model that is much cheaper and yet much, much heavier than the competition. Accurascale's not as heavy as it used to be. I think the sample I looked at was heavier than that, 820 something grams. So it's lost a bit of weight, but it's still insanely heavy. I mean, that is unbelievable. And more importantly, it's heavier than the Cavalex. So in terms of weight, in terms of price, in terms of included accessories, Accurascale have blown Cavalex out of the water. But what about the level of detail? What about the finesse of the two models? That's a little bit harder to call. In fact, I would say overall there is no net difference between the two. There are differences, and I think there are some things that Cavalex does better and there are some things that Accurascale does better. Overall though, I can't call it. I think they are both absolutely brilliant models. But let's talk about some of these details because they are interesting and some of them may be significant to you. So let's start with what Cavalex did better with their Class 60. So first of all, the underframe detail I think looks a lot better. This is the Cavalex underframe, this is the Accurascale one. They're both excellent, but I think there's just a little bit more fidelity on the Cavalex one. Similarly, if we look underneath, there is objectively more separate detail here than there is on the Accurascale. As you can see, we are missing a few parts there. But it is swings and roundabouts. If we then look at the underside of the bogie of the Cavalex, you can see there's no detail here. Underneath the Accurascale model, we have got detail. So how do you call that? The centre is more detailed on the Cavalex. The bogies themselves look better on the Accurascale. Also, Cavalex's screw-link couplings are free to move as per the prototype. That is not a feature with the Accurascale as far as I know. If you were to fit those, they would just be static. It's just a minor thing, but it's a difference I noticed. Also, the buffers on the Cavalex are more detailed. We actually have detail on the backs of the Cavalex buffers, whereas we don't on the Accurascale. However, the Accurascale buffers are made of metal, and the Cavalex ones are just made of plastic. So yeah, again, it's not entirely clear which is better, although both are sprung, I should say that. In terms of the buffer beams, Cavalex actually had magnetically removable buffer beams, which worked brilliantly, and it was very convenient. With the Accurascale, you have to manually undo 4 screws, which is more of a faff. So I think Cavalex wins here in terms of practicality and convenience. Also, I think Cavalex wins on the cab. We just have more detail inside the Cavalex cab. We've got the fan on the desk, which is just amazing, and we've got extra details such as the sort of what looks like a fire bell above the seats. Is that what that is? Yeah, Accurascale doesn't have the fan or really as much detail on the instrument panels, although I think they will illuminate on the Accurascale model, and they don't have much detail up in the top of the cab. So slightly better cab on the Cavalex, but is the Accurascale cab bad? No, it's amazing. We've got loads of detail. So yeah, they're both great, but if I'm really nitpicking, I think I prefer the Cavalex. But then there's loads of things the Accurascale model does better than Cavalex. For example, the handrails beside the cab doors, these are wire on the Accurascale model, not kind of cheap, bad-looking plastic as we saw on the Cavalex. Also, the cab windows are actually transparent here. You can see right through the loco, as is more realistic. The Cavalex model just had blank filled-in windows, which is less realistic, and that's quite a noticeable one, actually. The Accurascale horns are better. We've got more realistic horns here. As you can see, it's quite clear that the Cavalex ones are not hollow. So yeah, Accurascale's looks better. And then finally, I think the fidelity of the moulding is a little better with Accurascale. Here's a random part of the body. That's the Accurascale model. And here is the Cavalex. Yeah, they're both fine, but I think the Accurascale one looks slightly sharper. So I can't call it on detail. One model does something better than the other, and then another thing is done better by the other model. It's really hard to say, but do I have a favourite? Yes, I do. I'm not seeing £25 of extra value in the Cavalex model. One of the models is much heavier than the other, and it's not the Cavalex. One of the models came with a full suite of etched plates, and again, that wasn't Cavalex. It was Accurascale that did that, and their model was the cheaper of the two. Plus, assuming this loco runs without its gears sort of grinding because they're not meshing properly, again, I think that will be an advantage that Accurascale has, although I've not seen the performance yet, so maybe that could go either way. But anyway, let's jump in and look at the Accurascale model then. So the finish, as I've already noted, is excellent. We have a lot of complexity in this livery. A lot of the plates are, well, in fact, all of the plates, I think, are printed onto the model. So if you didn't trust yourself to fit the etched ones, you have got printed ones, although, of course, the etched ones will have a lot better relief. So the Reginald Munns nameplate, that looks fine printed, actually. Again, not quite as good as the etched one, though. And then we've got this logo on the side, which is nicely printed. You can see the light and dark grey through that part, though, which I don't think is intentional, so maybe that could have been a little better. But otherwise, the print work around the cabs, as you can see, is absolutely fine, and it is quite complex. The joins between the yellow and the grey on the ends as well are absolutely pristine, can't fault those. Very, very nicely painted model. The bogies, here's a look at the bogies. Again, these are just as good, I would say, as the Cavalex. We've got loads of separately fitted parts. All of this wiring has been painted as well and picked out. The moulding of the springs is brilliant too. Yeah, they are really, really good bogies. On the side of the model then, we've got glazed windows with the window frames painted, as you can see. The side grills look absolutely tremendous. Etched metal, of course, but they've got multiple layers of detail going on, which gives a real sense of depth with these grills. So yeah, really good job with those. We've also got another etched grill here, behind which you can see a full interior. And this was also here on the Cavalex, and I can't really place which I prefer. I think they're both probably just as good. Masses of interior detail plus lighting for DCC users so that you can illuminate that if you want to. And here's a look at the cab doors again. You've got the handles here, which have been picked out and painted. They look good. Here's a look at the end of the model then, and you've probably noticed something quite interesting. We have translucent couplings here. And the idea is that these are subtler than the opaque black couplings. And I guess they are, but personally, I'm not a fan of this. I think, are they invisible? No, you're still going to be able to see them. All this is going to do is draw your attention to them. This is the first model I think I've received with the clear couplings. Every other model I own, including my rolling stock, all has the opaque black couplings. So in a train full of black couplings, these clear ones are going to stand out. And like I say, they're not invisible. You're still going to see them. You've still got the black hook. I just think it draws attention, really. If every model had translucent couplings, I would say this is probably better, but they don't. There's a long way to go before this gets adopted, but it's certainly interesting, although I thought alternative opaque black ones were going to be provided where the clear ones were, and I don't believe I received any with this model. So yeah, not ever so keen on that really. And here's a look at the lighting clusters, which do look good, and they also haven't moulded the ridges into the lenses, which is correct, at least for this example. On the front-facing windows, we've got these very fine separately fitted wipers. They look fantastic, they really do. And I do wonder whether Accurascale missed the rivets around the window frames here, because they do seem to have been sort of painted on, which is fair enough. I guess it might have been intentional so that they're subtle, but yeah, they were part of the moulding on the Cavalex model. And then up on top we have another etched grille, which looks fantastic. Again, just as good as the Cavalex really. Nice to see separately fitted etched grilles on a model like this. And we've got a fantastic array of moulded detail on the roof, spruced up with a few separate parts. I mean, these grilles look really good. Beautiful moulding on that, and of course the exhaust looks very good as well. That's a separate part with some beautiful moulding on it too. Can you see where the removable panel is for the DCC access? Possibly, yeah, it's not the most subtle in the world, but I'll reveal where that is a little bit later on during the mechanism section. So there you have it, that is the Accurascale Class 60. I think they've done a really good job. You've heard what I think about it, you've heard what I think about this versus the Cavalex. What do you think? Which one do you prefer? Are there things that I've missed? And if you're an expert on the prototypes, are there any accuracy differences between these two models? Anything you've noticed, please do comment down below and let me know. Anyway, at the moment, I think Accurascale have done it for me. Their model is the best so far. But that is, of course, before I've seen the Accurascale running and before I've seen the final mechanism. So let's get this down onto the track and let's see what Accurascale managed to deliver in the end. So there it is, the Class 60 down onto the track, and you've got to admit this is an awesome looking thing, isn't it? I mean, even if you're not a fan of diesels like this, there's no denying what an impressively massive monstrosity this thing is. Yeah, it's really, really something. Anyway, let's talk about the mechanism. I filmed the performance test and I'll show you all of that in just a second. Let's jump in and look at the mechanism. So first of all, the couplings. These are very, very free to move. They pivot without getting stuck. That's because there's ample clearance between those couplings and the buffer beams. Cavalex fell down on this aspect. They didn't allow enough clearance, and so the couplings would get stuck. Not so with the Accurascale one, which is good. So the base keeper plates, unfortunately, are clipped on as opposed to screwed on, which makes them a little less convenient to remove for servicing. But I did notice that the sides of each bogie were not glued in place. So with a bit of care, you can actually remove those, and that gives you much better access to the clips for the bogies, allowing you to remove them without too much trouble. So I did manage to do that. Now you can see here we have all wheels driven, all 3 axles per bogie. Now I learnt a lesson on this with the Accurascale Class 31. I criticised that for not having all-wheel drive because I thought it doesn't matter about the prototype, you can't tell how many axles are driven on a model, I just prefer all-wheel drive. And the people spoke. People said, no, that's not prototypical. We prefer when models have prototypical numbers of driven wheels, which is fair enough. That is the line I'll take from now. But regardless of which party you support, Accurascale got this right. It's prototypically correct. And if you prefer all axles driven, Accurascale have you covered here as well. Now, yes, that means we don't have the center axle sprung for compensation, but that's not made any difference to this Class 60 by Accurascale. It's still perfectly reliable, even on my dodgy track work. Yeah, I'm not seeing any disadvantage to this loco having all of its wheels driven rather than just 2/3. That's really good to see. There's also very little slop in the gears, which is great to see. I believe the Cavalex had like a quarter turn's worth of slop. Not so with these, that's great. And there's helical gears used here as well, which is good. We've also got proper separate bearings fitted to the axles, which I like to see. So that's a good quality feature. And if I pull out one of these axles, you can see we've got traditional wiper pickups touching each wheel of the model, which is a nice traditional solution, which is also nice and easy to service. Now, for DCC access, if all you want to do is get to the decoder, you can just remove this hatch on the roof of the engine. Yes, this is where it is. And here's the blanking plate fitted onto the 21-pin socket, and look at this. We actually have each switch on here labelled. So if you want to disable a cab light or the engine room light, you don't have to pull out the instructions and study it. It's written on the board. That's great to see, and of course this also gives you good customizability as well. If you want to access more than just the socket, then obviously you do have to remove the body, which, hallelujah, actually came off exactly as the instructions described. So a few glue spreaders down the sides. The body was a very tight fit. I struggled to get it off, and I did start to wonder whether I needed to loosen any screws. But no, with a bit of wiggling, I did manage to get the body off. And this just shows how above and beyond Accurascale have gone with this. Look, inside the body there is actually a metal weight screwed to the inside of the ceiling. It hangs down from the ceiling just to add even more weight to the loco. And as you can see, there's no wires preventing you removing the body because we've got these pogo pins which connect the interior cab lights. Yes, we have interior cab lights. We also have the lighting on the ends of the chassis, of course, for the head and tail lights. Plus there's wires here going up to the instrument panels, which yes, also have illumination to them. That's fantastic. We've also got this very dense chassis, which has amazing weight to it. Yeah, I don't know how they did that, and we're still able to add features such as a pre-fitted speaker, which is here. The Cavalex one I don't think had a pre-fitted speaker. Obviously, if you want even better sound, then there is the option to get the Acura Thrash speaker, which is much bigger and bassier, but there is a pre-fitted speaker here as standard. That's good to see. Well done, Accurascale. Finally, we got the pre-fitted speaker. Sore subject? Okay, sorry. Then we have the capacitor bank, which is here. So this is your stay alive solution, pre-fitted, no need to source your own. Very, very good to see that. And then of course the decoder socket there is the 21-pin socket. So the motor is buried inside the chassis. I believe I could access it if I removed the circuit board and undid all of the wired connectors. I've decided I'm not going to do that. Trust me, there's a motor in there. It's a 5-pole one and it's got dual flywheels. We know that to be true. Here's a look at the engine room. Yeah, it's a really nicely detailed engine room, this. I'll show you that illuminated later on. And then this is the cab interior, just to give you a bit of a better look without the windows getting in the way. And then the back-to-back gauging, even this was superb. So 14.4mm back-to-back, very reliably, which is bang on the standard. One of them was a bit less at 14.3. But even so, very, very good. So everything seems to have been very well thought through with this mechanism. It's high quality, it's built to last, and you know what? All of this shines through in the performance. So with that, let me jump back in time and I'll show you how this ran. Okay, moment of truth then. Let's see how well Reginald runs. Here we go. Forwards direction, a little bit of juice. Does he work at all? Here goes. Yes. Oof. Well, to say this has not been run in yet, that was a delightfully smooth start, wasn't it? Goodness gracious. And let's show you 50% speed. There we go. So it's quite a slow, controlled run, really. What's the range of speeds like? Let me back up again and we'll run by at full speed, just to show you what that looks like. Here we go. Gosh. Do you know what? The quietness of this loco is really impressive. I mean, bear in mind this thing weighs over 800 grams. It's actually a serious machine, but it's really quiet. There you go, put my face right near it. Gosh, that is mightily impressive. Right, torque test, see what that's like. Fingers in front of the buffers, this is a heavy loco. It's going to struggle unless that motor is mightily powerful. 50%. Now, is it turning its wheels? No. Right, so torque isn't brilliant, and of course that is the penalty for very heavy models. They do struggle a bit more, but it's not running yet, so hopefully that will improve. Right, what's the crawl like straight out of the box? Again, I'll try all this again after it's run in, but I want to show you what this is like before I touch the mechanism. So here we go. Ooh. Can I get it in the sweet spot? Yeah, just about. So it's very, very slow. Yeah, an 800 gram loco running as slow as that is no mean feat. But it's not dreadfully smooth. It is kind of juddery. So again, hopefully running in will bring some improvements there. Okay, in terms of lighting, this is how the lights are set out of the box. Bear in mind, you've got dip switches so that you can change which lights are enabled on analog, and obviously on DCC you've got much more control. But we have the head and tail lights working, warm white in forwards, red in reverse. The directional cab lights are enabled by default, which is obviously not very realistic while the model's running, but at least if analog users want to make use of that, they can do. Those are working nicely. Also, we have the lighting inside the engine room, which works regardless of direction, and the positioning of those lights looks pretty good. It's up at the top rather than to one side, as we saw with the Cavalex. Does anyone know which is most realistic? I would guess this, but I am not an expert. Plus, we also have the instrument panels lighting up as well, which is a bit of an Accurascale speciality, really. It's really lovely to see that. So yeah, a great lighting package, which does work excellently, even on analog. Very, very nice. Right, let's run this in then. Let's see how it gets on around the track. Is there going to be any instability as a result of this being all-wheel drive with no compensated centre axle per bogie? Well, let's see. 50%, off she goes. Right, here she goes then. Fourth radius curves to begin with. No slowing down yet. Any issues on second radius? Let's see. Wow. Impressive. No slowing down that I saw, and no derailing. And my track is not the best. I think that's certainly fair to say. So if it's stable on my track, on my bizarre second radius S-bend, there's a good chance it will be on yours too. So mightily impressed by the performance then. Torque, a little bit of an issue. Doesn't seem to be slowing down on curves, so that's a good sign. Whether it will with a load, I don't know. We'll have to see. The torque test itself, a little bit on the weak side. It wasn't able to turn its wheels under an obstruction. Hopefully running in will improve that. The crawl was very good, but not particularly smooth. Again, there is room for improvement there. So I'll let this run in fully, and then I'll be back after it's done 30 minutes in both directions, and we'll finish off the review. Okay, there we go then, folks. That is running in complete, and it is marvellous. I still can't believe we're seeing an 800 gram locomotive, more than 800 grams, go around those second radius curves at relatively low speeds without slowing down. I mean, that is really, really impressive. So let me show you the speed now. It is not a fast locomotive. It seems to be geared for torque, which again, given the weight of this thing at over 800 grams, probably was the right decision. In fact, that's more than likely why this doesn't slow down on second radius, even on analog. Also, let's see what the crawl's like. It was pretty good before, but not ever so smooth. Has that improved now? Turning up. See if we can get it to slowly start. A bit more. I thought it started to move, but I don't think it did. A bit more. Oh yeah. Alright, so yeah, again, it's pretty slow, but not ever so smooth. It sort of lurches forwards and stops a bit. If I go a bit faster like that, yeah, really, really smooth. So not the greatest crawler in the world, but adequate for a Class 60, I suppose. Let's see what the torque is like then. So it couldn't turn its wheels under my torque test before. Let's see if it can now, under 50% load. I don't think it is. Yeah, it's trying, but yeah, so it's not an absolute powerhouse. But again, if this doesn't slow down with a load around the curves, then I don't think I'll have much cause for complaint. So with that, what's the pulling power actually like then? So it came in at 1.02 newtons, which is obviously more than the Cavalex, because it will be. It's much, much heavier. It's not as much as the likes of the Deltic, though, by Accurascale, I think because that loco did have better torque. So it's not quite making use of all the weight it's got, but is it more than powerful enough to haul a decently long train? I think so, yes. I think it will. And to test that, I've set up my usual rake of sort of modern looking open wagons. There's quite a few of these, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, I think. This is the sort of thing I use to test most of the large modern diesels. So hopefully this is a fair test. Let's back up. Let's see if those interesting translucent couplings are at the right height and will work correctly. Here we go. Right, let's see how precise I can be with this. Oh, nearly went overboard. Oh, there's a big bump there. What happened there? Have we got it? Yeah, we've got it. All right, and yeah, they do look to be spot on actually. Just the right height. Very nice. Right, so she's coupled to a train. Will she be able to haul this without slowing down? I don't know. The torque isn't amazing, is it? I think I'll be quite impressed if it does, but we shall see. Here we go. Let's go for about 50% speed actually, because that's certainly not too fast for this thing. And for now, yep, she's shifting them. All right, and on the middle line, I am running the Cavalex Class 60 because I've spoken a lot about that today. So it's only right that I run it. It's actually similarly geared. It's running at a similar speed there at 50%, but listen to the sound of it. Deary me. So yeah, the Accurascale is a much better runner if you ask me. Now, to be fair, I've not exchanged the gears on this yet. Cavalex did offer new gears, I think new wheels with new gears on them, something like that, that you could fit if you wanted to. I haven't done that with mine because, quite frankly, I haven't got time. But yeah, I recognise if I did that, it would be better. But, you know, what's the point of me spending hours and hours swapping the gears to get a model running better when it should have been good from the factory to begin with? So yeah, perhaps if I did that, the performance of this would be better. Perhaps it wouldn't slow down around the curves, that kind of thing. But reviewing the models as they are from the factory, which I do, yeah, the Accurascale is the far better performer for me. Now, am I saying in general the Accurascale Class 60 is fantastic and the Cavalex one is terrible? No, absolutely not. The Cavalex is a fantastic model. It fully deserves the high score that I gave it in my review. I would recommend it to you. And there are things this model does better than the Accurascale. I mentioned those earlier on. There are some aspects of the model which I think are better. So depending on what you look for, you might say the Cavalex model is the better one. But that's not my opinion. For me, the Accurascale is quite a bit better. I mean, that hasn't had any gearing issues from the factory. They took the time to get that right, even though it meant releasing their model quite a long time after Cavalex. I think that's probably a lesson. It's obviously £25 cheaper. It's got a lot more weight on board, which I really appreciate. Mechanically, I think it's better too. The gearing's better, the couplings don't get stuck. It's a little bit easier to access and service. It's got pre-fitted speaker, the lighting works on analog. The list for me goes on and on. So for me, it is Accurascale that have done it. If all things were equal, I would still say Accurascale because theirs is £25 cheaper, but actually it's clear Accurascale have gone above and beyond to deliver more. I mean, all of those etched plates, for example, were a really lovely addition, and we didn't get anything like that, or at least I didn't, with the Cavalex, but maybe they will deliver the promised nameplates. I haven't had any yet, but they did say they were coming. Right, that's the Class 60 by Hornby, which is still lovely, actually. It looks pretty good, but I think Accurascale and Cavalex between them have definitely improved on that quite a lot. Anyway, let's see how the Accurascale gets on up Gordon's Hill. Right, here we go. So running light, it did not slow down on the curves. Let's see if it's going to slow down to a crawl with a load. And no, it isn't. Oh. So that's really impressive. Yeah, not every new loco can do that, and yet this one can. So that's very, very good. So I think that's it. I think that's my conclusion. My preferred model is Accurascale's, but I'm still really glad that Cavalex did their Class 60, because it might be that because Cavalex did that, Accurascale put on a special effort and they delivered an even better model than they would have done ordinarily. Now that might not be the case, they might have made a model this good anyway, but the fact is this, I think, is the best Accurascale diesel we've ever seen, and without competition there is at least a chance that that wouldn't have been the case. It's clear that they really have made an effort to go above and beyond with this one, and for £169.99, I mean, that is really, really astonishing. So I'm pleased with this. The performance is, I think, better than the last few Accurascale diesels I've looked at. It doesn't slow down on curves, it doesn't seem to care about heavy loads, and despite the weight, even the crawl is really, really good. So I'm a big fan of this thing. I think they really have knocked the ball out of the park with this, and it is a beautiful, beautiful model. So if you want one of these Class 60s, I'll include a link down in the description. And obviously no hard feelings to Cavalex. Like I say, I still think they did a really good job with their Class 60, but I think if you're going to charge £25 more, you should deliver more and not less. And in my opinion, they have delivered less. So Accurascale wins it for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this though. What do you think are the important differences and which one do you prefer? Please do let me know. Let's have some ratings then for Accurascale's Class 60. And forgetting the Cavalex model, forgetting every other model that we may or may not want to talk about, thinking of the Accurascale model by itself, this is just marvellous. It really is very, very good. So level of detail, overall I've given 5-star. We can quibble about differences in the underframe and whether the screw link couplings move left and right, or whether we've got magnetic buffer beams or not. On the whole, this is a 5-star on the level of detail. It really is. We've got masses of interior detail that includes in the cabs and inside the engine room itself. We've got etched grills, sprung buffers, loads of tiny separately fitted parts, fantastic decoration of course, lovely finish. I mean, you name it, this loco has the lot. It is really, really impressive. The performance, I am pleased to say, is also really, really good. I was not expecting to see this loco run around second radius curves without slowing down, being that it weighs over 800 grams. That was a surprise to me, but it really does run well around those curves, better than the Cavalex one I tested actually, despite that one being much lighter. It's very sensibly geared. This is not a fast loco, unless you turn it up to maximum speed, of course, and then it does get a wiggle on. At normal speeds, though, it is very slow and controlled, and that does translate through in the torque. Now, there could be a little bit more power here, yes, especially when I did the torque test, the wheels didn't spin, but under normal loads, this thing isn't slowing down. Similarly, the crawl isn't the best in the world. It is very slow, but it's a little bit coggy. Again, that's probably to be expected for an 800+ gram locomotive, and I don't think it makes much of a difference, but I have knocked off half a star for it. The pulling power then is 1.02 newtons or 56 coaches on straight and level track, which is of course more than the Cavalex because the loco is so much heavier, but it's only about the same as Accurascale's Class 50. The Deltic was more powerful, I think because it just had a bit more torque in the mechanism. 56 coaches though, is that bad? No, of course not. This thing is going to be able to haul anything you throw at it, obviously. The mechanism then I've given 4.5 star. Again, the mechanism is really great here. So it's relatively serviceable. I wish that we had a few more screws rather than just clips. That would make body removal and removing the bogie base keeper plates a bit less of a headache. That's why I've not given this 5 star, by the way. But apart from that, it is really solid. So we've got proper bearings fitted to the driving axles. That's great. Quality helical gears without much slop in them at all, really, so that's good as well. Traditional wiper pickups which work very reliably, plus they're easy to access and clean as well, so they ought to last a long time. we've got quite clearly a high quality motor here. 5-pole, dual flywheels, very, very good. We've got Stay Alive pre-fitted, so if you want to install DCC and make use of that, you can do. It's got a pre-fitted speaker. It's got controls so that you can turn on and off the various lighting on analog. I mean, what else could you ask for? It is a great mechanism. Quality then, 5-star. This is one of the heaviest locos I've ever reviewed. 804 grams, so much metal on board, that is amazing. It just feels like an incredibly heavy and powerful machine the moment you pick it up. In addition to that though, we've got really top-notch decoration. I didn't see any blips in the paintwork or anything. As far as I can tell, all of the detail has stayed on my model. I didn't find any loose bits in the box, which is very good. Or in fact, I did find some loose bits. What about all those etched nameplates? Etched nameplates, what else? Etched logos, we had the etched BR arrows, we had the data boards as well. Loads of etched plates for you to install, which look way better than just the printed ones. So yeah, great quality. And you know what? Value for money as well. A loco like this for £169.99 in 2025 is getting rarer and rarer. To say this cost £25 less than the Cavalex, and it comes with so much more and it's so much heavier, etc., is really, really impressive. It just shows what Accurascale is capable of. So yeah, I gave Cavalex 4-star for theirs because it was still a great model. It was still largely worth the money. This I would say is a slightly better model and it's even cheaper, so it has to be a 5 for me. Overall then, that is a really high score for me of 9.51 out of 10. Really not much to fault here, and a grade of A, which is obviously well deserved. Into the logbook it goes then, and it is in first place actually, above the Accurascale P-Class. But it's well deserved. I really do think they've done a cracking job of this loco, which is not that unusual. We see marvellous locos all the time, but most of them cost way over £200 these days, which makes me think it doesn't take that much skill to make a good looking model these days, right? I think the skill really comes from making a fantastic model and making it at an affordable price. That is what Accurascale are continuing to do. So I take my hat off to them for that. I'm a huge fan of this locomotive, and if you want a Class 60, I think this is the one I would recommend. Alright then folks, well that will just about do it for my review on Accurascale's Class 60. Yeah, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say this is Accurascale's best diesel to date. At least of the examples I've reviewed, I've not had one so far that has impressed me quite this much. This really has ticked most of the boxes, and you know, I like to be critical in my reviews. I personally believe that no model is perfect, and no matter how good a model is, there's always going to be room for improvement. And do you know what? The room for improvement aspect for this model has been really, really hard to pinpoint. I've done my best, I've come up with a few small things that could have been improved, but it was not easy, and I think it's worth recognising that. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you again very, very soon with something different. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.